It's a Teen Talk Skating podcast where I embarrass myself. Hello, and welcome to episode number 76 of a Teen Talk Skating podcast. My name is Van Gogh. Hope you guys are all doing very, very well. It is very, very, very hot where I am currently, but I don't want to turn the air conditioner on in my room because whenever I turn it on, I swear you can barely hear me, and it's literally just air conditioner. And air conditioners don't talk about skating, and only I talk about skating on this podcast. Like it's stealing my spotlight. You know what I mean? So if I sound like I'm dying from sweat, that's why. I hope you guys are all doing very, very well. I've been really into watching Jeopardy recently. Don't know why. I kind of been into it. I kind of want to make a figure skating themed Jeopardy board to post on like the internet somewhere, but I don't know if I'll do that. I'll get around to that. I did make a Reddit account with the username of Teen Talk Skating, but I want to use it, but I'm scared at the same time. Not that anyone like knows me or anything. Like I'm wildly unpopular, but like at the same time, I'm like I don't know, like something about interacting with people on the internet just gives me the heebie-jeebies. I know that's literally what I do every day on this podcast, but messaging people is just like directly, just like I don't know. But like I kind of like being on Reddit, but like I'm always a lurker. Like I don't say anything, I never like anything, I never say anything at all. I just view things as a guest account. Like I never even made my own account, and so I just made my own account, and I kind of want to use it, but I'm scared at the same time. Anyway, I'm really tired and I want to sleep, but Wimbledon, like I don't know why I've been into tennis recently, but Wimbledon has gotten me so interested in tennis for no reason. Like it's really turned into like my off-season sport. A ton of people like to go watch gymnastics during when figure skating is not on. But I guess I watch tennis when figure skating is not on. So I don't know. But I hope you guys are all doing very well. I know that was a bunch of ranting stuff, but I feel like we should probably get into our program of the week and then the main episode, which is a good episode. I feel like I planned this one out really, really well, and I really do like the topic I'm talking about today, which you probably saw in the title, but it's fine. So let's go to our program of the week. Program of the week. Okay, guys, so like you heard, it is time for our program of the week, and we have a Paris program today. I know I never, ever, ever, ever do a Paris program. If I do a Paris program, it has to be a really special program because Paris programs give me like the heebie-jeebies. They don't, no. I just hate watching Paris programs, so they just make me so scared. But this one is from the American team of Alexis Knierim and Brandon Fraser from their 2023 World Team Trophy Free Skate, which is set to Sign of the Times by Harry Styles. And this program is a very good example of a Paris program that shows a lot of the technical elements, but also does not sacrifice the artistry. I feel like that is my main gripe with a lot of Paris programs. I feel like is that they do all these cool technical movements and then they kind of forget about the artistry side. They forget about the components. They're really focused on the throws and the jumps. But this program does not forget it, in my opinion, and they really do combine both together. Sign of the Times is a very like building up epic kind of song. I think it really works well for this Paris program. It starts off very, very slow, and there's this movement they do in the beginning of the program where Alexa Knierim is kind of like laying back, and then Brandon Fraser kind of like pushes her forward and around. It's just like it's cool. It's cool. Some of the highlights of the program, the triple twist is so good. It's just so good, and her Alexa Knierim, she like just kicks her leg back so well. It just creates this very beautiful landing, in my opinion. Very beautiful triple to double side by side jump. My favorite part of this program is the triple loop throw. The triple loop throw just has to be the most perfect throw I've ever seen. I've just never seen a better throw. It almost gets plus 5 GOE across the board. Throw triple loop is worth 5 points. I think it's 2.43, which is almost half, which is almost all five plus 5 GOE. But the landing of it, her back is straighter than anything in the whole world. Like if I had that kind of straight back, my back wouldn't be hurting. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, the landing is just so perfect. She's just looking like she's just standing up. Like I did not just rotate 3 times in the arrow after being thrown. No, I'm just gliding back, and just the gliding motion backwards is so beautiful. It's really impressive to see the triple. The lip throw is also beautiful. Again, getting that leg kicked back so fast really adds that balance and like aesthetic to the landing. And then their very first lift, she's kind of in this position where she's kind of like Brandon Fraser is like lifting her up like with one hand. It's like super impressive, and then in that, and to like even shift the balance even more, she's kind of in a star position. She like her both her legs are out, both her arms are out. So I'm like his balance with that must be like absolutely insane. Brandon Fraser is like such a talented lifter, I guess. All right, not I guess, but he's definitely a very talented lifter. But I really love like the star position. It's kind of like look at us, look at this cool spectacle that we're creating on the ice. They're, it's just very beautiful to see. Their second lift is very good, and then their choreo sequence kind of, Brandon Fraser is kind of going on an edge, I guess. Like he's skating in a curve. He lifts her up, and like she holds onto his shoulder, and she puts one arm out. It's just very beautiful seeing them ride that edge. It's just so good. I did really like their hair combination spin right before it. He does this. Brandon Fraser lifts her up and kind of lifts her upside down, and he spins on 2 feet for like a few seconds. That's a very cool transition I don't see very often. But anyway, a very very beautiful program. At the end of it, you can tell they're just like, thank the Lord. How did we do that? I don't know how we did that. But yeah, very cool program. Go check it out. Brandon Fraser or Alexa Kinnear and Brandon Fraser, their 2023 World Team Trophy Free Skate. And by the way, Alexa Ingram is a new mother today, which I did not pick this program because of that. That kind of just happened. But she just had a baby, so congrats to her. Yeah, huge coincidence, but I actually did not. Like, I swear, I did not choose the program because of that. But that's just kind of happened. So that was cool. I saw that on Reddit today, which is cool. Anyway, time for our main episode. That was your program of the week. Okay, guys, it's maybe been like 10 minutes. I'm already dying from a sweat. Like, we need to get this episode through so I can turn on the dang air conditioner. Like, I'm dying so bad, but I know if I turn it on, you guys can hear it and it's gonna be bad. And I don't want to have to use some like noise cancellation thing because those are so buggy sometimes. But anyway, we are here today with a analysis video essay episode that I love to make. Yes, I know that I make these like too often, but I kind of just want to make whatever content I want to make and what everything I have going on in my head that's just fun to think about, and like, that really gets me thinking and excited about the sport. Maybe I do these too often and I should have more variety in my content, but I really do love looking at this analytical side of figure skating and kind of the internal workings of the sport. And so I don't necessarily do whatever is going to be popular. I'm sorry that I'm not reviewing every triple axel landed by a woman today. I don't even know. I don't know what would be popular, honestly. I kind of just make what I want to make, and sorry if that's not the most interesting thing, but I really do love making these analysis and video essay episodes. I feel you can tell by the way I speak that I really do care about these topics. I really do care about what I'm saying. I'm really interested in what I'm saying. And so today we are back with, again, like I said, with another video essay. Check out the other ones. I made ones on social media and like fame and figure skating and the American like women's revolution that's kind of happening right now with the revival women's skating. And I made video essays on ChatGPT and AI and skating and a bunch of other topics. You can just scroll down the list of episodes. The ones that have like a question usually are the ones that, whatever. The ones with the cool dramatic title that I try to put out. Those are the ones that are usually the video essays. But anyway, this video essay is a very, very, very controversial change. The topic is a very controversial change in figure skating that only occurred 3 years ago, back in 2022, which is crazy to me that that was 3 years ago, because I remember when this change happened, it was the biggest drama in the history of drama figure skating, I feel like. But now I feel like the arguments have kind of cooled down. Not a lot of people are tense about it anymore. It's still in the air, but this change has changed the course of the sport as we know it now, and for sure the future of it as well. That is the main point I'm going to try to make here, is that this change, while not being seen now immediately, maybe like too much, will affect the future of the sport. And that change is the age minimum. So the age minimum, is a very complex topic in figure skating. It has to do with a lot of things to talk about, like the biology of it and the law of it. And that's kind of like what we're trying to get into today, is um kind of everything that goes along with the age minimum. So I'm gonna be discussing like what is it right now, what did it used to be, what did it change, why did it change, what's kind of the impact it has on skating, the advantages of it and then the disadvantages of it. So kind of the big debate between the two sides. What people say about that, and then what do I personally think about it, and then kind of like could it ever change again in the future? That's kind of the main topic of today. So again, just a huge deep analysis into the issues surrounding the age change and the age minimum. Sorry, the age minimum and whatever is affected by it. If that makes sense. I feel like I'm already out of breath. It's so hot. That's gonna be me. Last week I was talking about fireworks the whole episode. This week I'm gonna talk about how dang hot it is. It's so hot. Okay, excuse me. Okay, the age minimum. So what is it? The age minimum is the minimum age of a skater to allow them to compete on the senior level. So, it allows them to move up from the junior level and begin competing on the senior level. So those are competitions such as Challenger Series competitions, Grand Prix competitions, Europeans, Four Continents, Worlds, and I feel like most importantly, of course, is the Olympics. So um, if you are not if you're not within the age minimum, you cannot compete at the Challenge Series, the Grand Prix, the championships, the Worlds, etc. You cannot be competing at those events if you have not reached the age minimum for those events. And this does quite affect a lot of people, which I will explain after I explain all the numbers. So right now, you have to be 17 years old to compete on the senior level. You must be 17 years old before July 1st of the upcoming season. So, for example, July 1st just passed. It's July 11th as I'm recording this. Happy 7-Eleven day. But it's July 11th as I'm recording this. And if you are not 17 years old before July 1st, you cannot be competing on the senior level. It does not matter if you turn 17 on July 1st or like July 2nd, you cannot compete on the senior level. There is really no exceptions, there's no grandfather rule, there's nothing like that that allows you. It's a very strict rule. If you're not born on July 11th or before July 11th, at midnight or whatever it is, before July 11th at midnight, you are not allowed to compete on the senior level, and you have to be 17 years old. Okay. On the junior level, the age minimum is a little different. I'm not gonna get into juniors that much this episode because I'm mostly talking about the senior level. But juniors, you can be anywhere from 13 to 19. It never changed from the original. That was always it. And then for men in pairs and ice dance on the junior level, they can stay until they're 21. Mostly because there's kind of a shortage of men in pairs and ice dance in the junior field, and so they allow the men to be a little bit older for that reason. Okay, but that was, that's the new rule. So ever since 2022, how it worked was that you had to be 17 years old to compete on the student level. Actually, that's not really how it worked. So I'll explain. They didn't want to make the change immediately and cut everyone off. So in the 2022-2023 season, they stayed at 15 years old. From 2023 to 2024, you had to be 16 years old. And now from 2024 to 2025, this past season, you have to be 17. And this upcoming season, you also have to be 17. The old rule was that you could be 15 years old and compete in the senior category. You could turn 15 before July 1st of the upcoming season, and you could go compete at Challenger Series, Grand Prix, Europeans, Four Continents, the Olympics, Worlds, etc. You could compete on the senior level. And I do want to note that this only affects people internationally, so do not get at me. I do know that there's 13-year-olds who are competing in the senior category at their home country's nationals, but this only affects people internationally. Nationally, they all have their own rules. It's really complicated. But internationally, you have to be 17 years old. That's the magic number, and that's the number you have to remember throughout this whole episode. So please remember the number 17. 17 years old, okay? Like, I don't really know. 17 years old to be on the senior level. And so remember that the old one used to be 15. Now 2 years, you're like 15, 17. Is it really that much of a difference? It might not seem a lot, but it makes a huge difference, particularly in some of the kind of nuances that I will explain later in the episode. And again, there are no ifs, ands, buts, etc. No exceptions. If you are 16 years old and 364 days on July 1st, you are not competing on the senior level. You are staying in juniors. Sorry, ISU, there is no shifting here. There's no exceptions or no petition you can sign. It's really a hard set rule. One of the hard set rules that the ISU can actually follow, I guess. The judging, But okay, so yeah, basically in that first section, the age minimum to be on seniors used to be 15 and now it's 17. When did it change and why did it change? So this changed following the 2021-2022 season. The ISU had a huge meeting in Thailand, a congress. ISU, the International Skating Union, has a bunch of congresses, I think every 3 years or so, every 4 years, I don't really know, where they discuss many things. Last time they got a new president, they added the sequence rule for a full base value for any sequences. They, voted on a bunch of things, and it's not just for figure skating, of course. Of course, the ISU also maintains speed skating, short track speed skating, and synchronized skating, and so that's also a big thing. But for our relevance, only figure skating is really the most popular, important thing. And the age change in figure skating was definitely, I feel like, the biggest thing to come out of that Congress, that huge meeting they had, where they made a ton of changes. But the age minimum change was definitely the most prominent of those. Based on my research, their official reasoning, which was a little broad in my opinion, their official reasoning for the age change, the ISU themselves, the people who make all the rules in the sport, their official reasoning was that the age change was to help maintain physical and mental health of young athletes. And I found that on So You Want to Watch Figure Skating, which is a great website. Go check them out. But that's what I saw, apparently, that their only reasoning that they said was it was for physical and mental health purposes, which, is definitely the big, one of the biggest factors for it. But there's a lot of reasons for the age change beyond just physical and mental health. I guess they all are related to physical and mental health, but, I want to get more into detail. Okay. Sorry, that's my computer stand, if you can hear that. So why did it change, right? Like why, the ISU did not just say let's make it 17. They had to have a lot of reason for it. And I would say the main reason for the age change was due to the Kamila Valieva doping scandal at the 2022 Olympics. Now, this was a very major event in figure skating at the 2022 Olympics. It was one of the biggest headlines all over the world. Even if you did not care about figure skating, a lot of people heard of it. Like I had friends who knew that I watched skating. They were just like, I saw it on the news. I read about it. I read about Kamila Valieva, the whole situation. I'm like, yeah, like let's sit down and talk about it. But the Kamila Valieva doping scandal, what happened at this doping scandal was that Kamila Valieva, who was very much considered the top contender for the Olympic gold in the women's event, she was only 15 years old. She was a first season senior. Her first season was the Olympic season. She went to the Olympics. She won, I believe, every competition that season leading up to the Olympics. She was setting world records all over the place. She could land triple axels. She could land quads. She could land all these jumps. She was very gifted in her extension, and a lot of people were complimenting her, somewhat mature artistry that she already had. And Kamila Valieva was found out to have been doping. So they found a doping test that tested positive for a medication that was, I believe, a heart medication. It's called trimetazidine. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that was kind of what happened. We found out that Kamila Valieva was doping, or she was being doped, which is more likely. She was 15 years old. You have to remember this. She was 15 years old, and she was likely being doped by the adults around her. And, what a lot of people, I think, kind of turned a lot on Camila Valieva, and definitely turned a lot on her, if that makes sense, started hating her. People were such big fans of Camila Valieva. It was personally my first season of really, really, really watching figure skating, and I was so into all of this, newfound drama, who's going to win the Olympic gold, who's going to the Olympics, etc. And we left that season off this note of the Camila Valieva doping scandal, and it was the craziest thing to me. It was the craziest thing because it's just I was just like, I just got into the sport. Like, there's a whole doping scandal already. Like, I just got here, right? And yeah, it was a huge doping scandal. We found out Camila Valieva at 15 years old, she was doping. She ended up fourth place in the singles event at the Olympics, and I believe she got stripped of all her titles before December of 2021, if I believe. So she did win a European gold medal. She was stripped of that gold medal. She did not earn. They took the title back from her and moved everyone else one place up. So that is something to note. So because she was doping, they took away her titles. Um, and that was kind of the main motivator, I feel like, or at least the main thing that got the tension really going for the ISU, that they're like, let's do the age minimum change, because if we move it to 15 and 17, maybe, again, they were saying physical and mental health can be protected. In this case, they were, concerning Camila Valieva, her physical health, because she was doping, which is definitely not good for someone who's 15 years old, her longevity, career, and etc. The mental health part as well. She was dealing with this huge media pressure. They were interviewed. They wanted to interview her. They wanted to do it. She was 15 years old. That's what you got to understand. And the adults around her had been responsible for this doping. That's what a lot of people said. There was a huge court case. There's this. There's that. You got to imagine that if you're 15 years old and this is all going through your head, you know what I mean? Which I do not for sure condone like everything that Camila Valieva has done. Some of her views are definitely not great. But, concerning just a 15-year-old person who's being doped by the adults around her, that was the hugest scandal in figure skating at the time. And so that was a big, I guess, reason for the IC to do the age change. I won't say that it was the only, like it was the main cause of it. Camila Valieva was not the first. She was not the last. I honestly thought, I think that we kind of saw it coming. I think we kind of saw it coming. That's what I want to say, because it was this huge culture of having young skaters come up and ending their careers super early, or at least kind of losing their longevity. A lot of skaters in Russia, where Valieva was from, and just a lot of skaters in general would do, well, they were rising up and then they would get super injured, or they would just burn out and they would not do well at competitions and they would end their careers at very young ages. These were skaters who ended their careers before they were like legal adults at 18. These were skaters who kind of gave up at 17. These are skaters who gave up at 18 or 19, and they're just like, no, we're not doing this. Or they're just too injured to continue. And it was even before Camila Valieva. I do think that we kind of saw it coming, and thus just Camila Valieva and her whole case was the main instigator for it, if that makes sense. It just intensified, what everything, all the attention around it, and it made it more urgent. And so the ISU decided to pass, or I guess the members of it. I have no idea what the exact vote was about how many people voted for the age minimum change and how many people voted against it. I have no idea. But, obviously the age change won, and now we have different age requirements to become a senior. So, yes. So obviously, if the age requirement had been 17, skiers like Mia Valieva would not have been able to compete at the Olympics because she was only 15. And so that's what we kind of have to consider, is that these skaters who were coming out really young at 15, they would not be having go into the Olympics. Yeah. Okay, what is the impact that this age minimum change has on skating? Basically, why should you care about it? I want to say again that a lot of people have noted that it's just 2 years. Like it's 2 years. 2 years is nothing. But honestly, 2 years is a lot, especially in a sport like figure skating, where I really do think a lot of people tend to have shorter careers. We're not having careers in figure skating that go for about 20 years. It's, maybe 10 years if you're lucky, and maybe it's 2 Olympic cycles if you're lucky. That's kind of the general trend in figure skating that's happening apparently, or currently, not apparently, it's definitely happening. That a lot of people make it to 1 Olympics or 2 Olympics, and they're just like, yeah, retirement time. Why should you care about this? I think that, many people point out actually that it really affected the women's discipline the most, and I will explain why. Or I'll explain why, not the other disciplines. Okay. The men's discipline was not affected too much from the age change. There were not a lot of younger male skaters who were around 15 or 16 skating in the senior category anyway. At the Olympics, Nathan Chen, who won, I think he was 22 or 21 when he won. And I don't know if any of the men at the Olympics were 15 or 16 years old. I honestly cannot remember. I don't think they were at the 2022 Olympics, at least. I think they were all about 17 or older. I'm like forgive me if I'm wrong for sure, but I really cannot remember someone who was 15 or 16 at the Olympics. But a lot of like men skaters that were super young were not gonna win anyway, if that makes sense, because the quad jumps take a long time to come. In the men's discipline, quads are really the main shebang, the main way to get your money. You know what I mean? And a lot of those early younger male senior skaters were not having quads yet, and they were still working on their artistry and their component score, etc. Consistency was a big thing as well. And so this age change did not really affect a lot of the male skaters because there weren't many, I guess, younger male skaters around 15 or 16 doing seniors anyway. They were mostly staying on the junior level and getting more experience, which is great. Um, Pairs was also not really affected too much by this age change. Again, not a lot of pairs choosing to come up to seniors at the age of 15, 16, usually waiting to stay on the junior level more to develop and get more experience. Again, really great. I see it as a whole situation where it's not like career suicide or something to go on the senior level when you're really young, but at the same time, ice dance is a discipline with what I call age bias, where a lot of people point out that older teams that have stayed together longer are the ones usually getting more points, and so skaters that are going to seniors at like 15, 16, like they're not gonna gain anything. In fact, it's probably a disadvantage to them because the judges don't care. They're super young. They're not good ice dancers in their mind, I guess. But again, if you want to learn more about that, I have an episode all about the politics of ice dance and how age affects ice dance results. As long as far as we've seen, I guess. But anyway, the women's discipline. Why the women's discipline? Why was the women's discipline the most effective discipline by this age change? And that has to do a lot because you all of a sudden you had to be older to compete in seniors. A lot of these women were 15, 16. They were coming up to the senior ranks and they were skating, and then they would end their career at like 19 or like 18 or like 20. Um, you know, what was happening was that some of these women were coming up here, particularly the Russian women, were coming up with triple axels and quads from the junior ranks into the senior ranks. They were winning everything for like a season. They would get injured. They're gone. That's kind of the pattern that we saw a lot. And you could, suddenly you had to be 17. You could not be 15 and do all these quads and triple axels and win absolutely everything under the sun. We were encouraging people to stay in juniors until they're 17, and maybe you still have those quads and triple axles. A lot of people point out that a lot of quads and triple axles are possible because puberty has not fully set in yet. A lot of biological processes haven't like set in yet. You aren't super super tall. You aren't super like you aren't heavy yet. You're light. You're very well adapted to aerodynamics, etc. Lots of things like that. And so now you had to be older to convene seniors. Your body had to develop more. You had to develop your, mentality and maturity more, particularly too. I feel like you had to develop your athleticism more, and you had to be more consistent, or at least able to get back jumps. If that makes sense, you couldn't just do triple axels in juniors and expect that you're gonna come up seniors and do the same thing and win everything. You have to wait until you're 17, and maybe if you're 17, you still have a triple axel or a quad in there, which we haven't really seen too much of. But just saying that it really did affect its women discipline because of the general trends going on around that time. Okay, as a real world kind of example of how this works, or this thing that happened, Mao Shimada is a skater from Japan, and she's a very gifted junior. She's been junior world champion for 3 whole years now. A lot of people point out that she is not old enough to go to the Olympics. She is going, by the time the Olympics start, she is going to be 17, but because she was born in October of 2000, what year is that? 2008. If she was born in October 2008, she would only be 16 on July 1st of 2025, if that makes sense. And so she would not be 17, and therefore, like I said, you cannot compete in seniors if you're not 17 before July 1st. And so Mao Shimada, who's a very, very gifted junior, she's landed quad toes, she's landed triple axels. She will not be allowed to compete in the senior level, at least internationally. And she will not be, Japan cannot send her to the Olympics in any way. She is not eligible to go because of these age requirements. And a lot of people pointed out that maybe this is unfortunate. Maybe this is a good thing for her. But it might not seem important now, I would say. But Mao Shimon is one of of many many examples that I think will occur. I think she's the first, or at least the first really huge major one of a lot of young junior women who are wanting to go to the Olympics. And if they had the old age rules where they had to be 15, they could have gone. But because Mao Shimada is not yet 17 under the new rules, she is not allowed to go. And she's just kind of the first major example. We will see definitely more for sure. It might not seem important now because, again, the age change just started, but the future of the sport is really what is most important to consider and recognize, and how it's going to affect the future. In the future, there's going to be 10 juniors in this situation where they're too young to go to the Olympics, even though they have all this technical ability. No, right? And so maybe not now, but the future is really when it's going to hit figure skating. Okay. Okay. I want to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages, or at least what people are arguing, because this was a huge debate. When the ISU decision came out, there was such uproar in figure skating. I would say there was a huge uproar. There was a huge, culture, and people were just talking about this everywhere. They were talking about on Twitter, or I guess it's now X or whatever. They were talking about on Twitter. They were talking about on Reddit. It was a huge thing about figure skating, and like, it was just like, what the heck? This is like a huge, unprecedented change in the sport. And people were mad about it. We had professionals, we had biologists talking about it. We had professional figure skaters. I remember Chrissy Yamaguchi was, one of the skaters who I think disagreed with this a lot. But we also had skaters, I think, like Johnny Ware and Tara Lipinski, who were kind of in agreement with this change. And a lot of different opinions. It didn't matter what country you were from. Didn't matter what how much experience you had. Everyone was kind of weighing in on this, and there's a lot of advantages on one side, lots of disadvantages that I want to explain. Okay, we're going to talk about first the pros of the age change. So, what people were arguing for. They're like, yeah, the age change is a great thing. And one of the main things people were saying is that it allows young skaters to develop more experience on the junior rank. When you're young, right? When you're young, this young, and on the junior rank, you can compete on the junior rank starting at age 13. And if you're on the junior rank for at age 13 and age 14, but then at age 15 you go to the senior ranks, some people point out that only 2 seasons, only 2 years on the junior ranks is not really a lot of experience. A lot of people say, like, well, they should get a lot more experience on the junior ranks. 3 years or 4 years on the junior ranks before they get to the senior ranks. The junior ranks is a really good opportunity to develop some of their skills, learn more, meet other skaters, and all this great opportunity that if you go into the big, big, bad world of the senior ranks, I think that definitely could be a huge, struggle or challenge adapting that new environment, that maybe some people would rather get more experience on the junior ranks. Especially, of course, I do think, especially if, they are in a position where, these skaters are young, they're going to school still, they might still go to a school, they might not go to a cool study program that allows them to skate, they might be going to public school, they might be missing school to compete. Are they ready for that kind of lifestyle? It really gets them thinking about, I think, if they want to continue skating professionally as a senior, etc. I feel like we would get a lot more kind of not, I don't wanna say, like, people leaving the sport, but I feel like a lot more time to think about really big decisions in figure skating, if they wanna keep continuing, if they don't wanna keep continuing, kind of things like that, in between that, I guess, would be my main thought about experience. And then a lot of more time, I think, for a lot of people to say for their body's development. This is a young age. Again, like I said, you can be 13 and compete in juniors. And if you're 13 again competing for 2 seasons, and at 15 you're going to seniors, a lot of people say, well, your body is not developed yet. How are it's in the senior level, you're not that. your body isn't as developed yet. You need to focus on that first. A lot of people were making that argument that, what something I've seen is that these are not women, these are young girls. That's what I've seen people say on Reddit, is that these are not men, these are like teenage boys. They're not like men yet. They're not like, their bodies have not developed into that state yet. At least that's what I've seen. And so a lot of people say like it's better for them to develop their body more physically, biologically, and to compete on the senior level, which I agree. Maybe there is better, artist or not artistry, what I'm saying, better, less risk of injury maybe when your body's more developed or you have a better understanding of your body. That's something I could see. But that's a big part too, is that biological aspect. A lot of people say that if you stay on the junior level for longer, hopefully you get to develop and focus on your skating skill and artistry more in training. Again, a big problem, not problem, a big trend we were seeing is that junior women would come through the ranks and they would go to doing quad jumps and triple axels in the senior ranks. They were, great technical score, that they were super high technical score that we're getting, but at the same time, their components were just like not good. Their performance skill was just not there. Like it was just not on par compared to many other senior women. Their artistry side was just not very developed, and so I think a lot of people are hoping that with the age change, people will stay in juniors for longer and hopefully develop more of an artistic side, artistic identity, so that when they come to seniors, they're not gonna be like, you know, just jumping and spinning and here's my step sequence and maybe I'll give you a smile here and a smile there. And I will say, I feel like the most important one for me personally is allowing a culture of longevity. What's happening, what we're seeing is that, like I said, what we were seeing was that people would go to the seniors at 15, they would retire at like 17 or 18 or 19. They would end their career, they get too injured to continue. But with this age change where you have to be 17 to compete, this really allows a bigger culture of longevity. And older skiers are really getting more prominence and results as well. You see skiers like Amber Glenn, who I think is 26 now, who are, she's not 15, she's not 16, she's 26, I believe, this year, I think. But she's 26 and she's competing really well. She's been able to land a triple axel. She's still able to land a triple axel at age 26. She doesn't need to be 15 to be landing a triple axel. But she's 26, she's landing a triple axel. She's been the US national champion for 2 years in a row now. She's had good, relatively good results internationally. She just had an almost undefeated season recently. And, she's proving again that older skiers can get more prominence and results as well, even later in their career. Whereas if we just say, okay, the age limit is 15, the skier, is like, okay, I can compete for 3 years and I'm done. No, what we're encouraging with the age limit of 17 is that we're encouraging a culture of longevity where it's kind of say like, hey, stick around for a couple of seasons, maybe stick around for 2 Olympics, try to make it to Olympics. And so, we have this really nice, thing where we see skaters who are, a little bit older, like 26 is not old at all. And these older skaters are getting good results, they're getting good prominence because they built that long understanding of their body and how to take care of their body and have a long career back when they were a junior. They were allowed to have more time as a junior to develop. And now as a senior, they're really, really good and really healthy and they're really building on that. So those are the main advantages, is that what I kind of saw or what I think people kind of say mostly. Now for the disadvantages, of course, there's also disadvantages. People were mad at the time. They're like, what do you mean 17 now? That's so old. And a lot of arguments against the age change, a lot of, shaming the ISU for what happened. The I want to say that what people say about the age change is that it was not the right response maybe to the whole doping scandal and everything related to doping. because like, and this is very much true, the doping scandal and related things happening in doping scandal, like, abuse in terms of training camps and everything, was not happening to like all skaters. It was not this super super duper problematic thing happening to the entire skating community. It was happening to a small amount of skaters, a lot of them coming out of Russia, a lot of them coming out of certain camps in Russia who were doping, or they were doing quads and triple axels and their bodies were being pushed to the very limits and things like that. This was only happening to a small amount of skaters. It's not all skaters. A lot of people did argue that because of that, the age limit should be kept at 15. But instead of raising the age limit, they should be keeping a closer eye on coaching, keeping a closer eye on coaching environments. They should be sending officials out to coaching environments to see what coaching is like. They should be having more cohesive structure in place to report abuse or any incidents or anything that bad might happen. And I definitely do think that is great stuff, for sure. And I definitely do agree that yes, the doping scandal was not worldwide. It wasn't like universal. Not everyone was being doped. And I think that's something people were really saying is that, yeah, we should do other things that are more targeting closer to the problem. Looking at coaches, building a more huge, bigger structure for reporting such issues, instead of, especially just national issues. We have Safe Sport in the USA, and I think Skate Canada has their own thing too, and maybe making a more international reporting towards this type of thing, problems, any incidents at competitions, in coaching environments, etc. Because that can often be a huge issue, is that it's not the age of the skater, it's the people around the skater. That's something we did see with Kamila Valieva. It's the coaches, it's the choreographers, it's the trainers, it's the physical therapists. Those are the people more causing issues, and not these are not young teenagers are not causing the issues. It might just be the adults, the grown-ups who are responsible for them and who lack that responsibility to take care of them, and lack a sense of control, and are not taking care of them as they should. Okay, moving on. Another point, what I saw from a lot of people arguing against these advantages is that restricting the sport from having these huge young stars really does stifle its popularity. If you look at some other sports, you see a lot of like teenage phenom, like 15-year-old does this, 16-year-old does this, maybe, 15-year-old fastest runner in the world or something. I don't really know. Or you see even in like tennis, as I started watching, you've seen like, oh, 6-year-old does really well in Grand Slam, or maybe being recruited to play on college football already or something. Things like that really add a lot of hype to the sport. And that's that kind of hype that we need in figure skating. Figure skating is a massively unpopular sport right now. It has been for, quite some time, ever since like the 90s or early 2000s. It's really dropped down in popularity. And people are concerned that restricting the sport from having these 15, 16-year-olds, these very young stars, that could do a lot of media presence, that could do a lot of, adding to the popularity of the sport. People are concerned that restricting the sport to that level could be detrimental, because we're not adding hype of the sport. People are seeing adult skate. They want to see like 15-year-old skate. They want to see 16-year-old skate. That could be something. I see that point, that restricting the sport does not really add its popularity. It might decrease its popularity, in fact, and that could be a valid argument, I feel like, if you took it that way. Yeah, and I think the main argument from this side was that it was not age. Like I said, it was not age that was the issue. It was, coaching environments. It was having access to drugs. It was state sponsored programs that fund drugs. It was that kind of issue. It wasn't this or that. It wasn't age. It wasn't a number. It wasn't how old the skater was. It wasn't if they were junior, almost a senior, the age cut up. It was, the environment around these skaters. And I think that's something I can agree with as well. Solving those issues obviously does take a lot of resources. Does the ISU have all those resources? I don't know. I probably not, maybe, but we will, that's something to consider as well. Okay. Lastly, I kind of want to talk about what I, as a person, as a figure skating analyst and a critic and whatnot, personally think about the issue of the age change. I want to say 17, I see why people say it's a little too old. Maybe 17 is a little too old, but I definitely do think 15 is way, way too young. Like that seems really young to me to be competing in an international sport, going to the Olympics. Like 15 sounds really young. 17 might be a little too old. Tennis, which I watch now, I guess has an age minimum for 14 years old with limitations on the like number of competitions you can do at that age. If that makes sense. So they're limiting how many like adult senior professional tournaments you can do at the age of 14. They're still allowing you to compete, but there's still limitations. I do wonder if, something similar could happen in figure skating that, yeah, okay, so you can compete on seniors at 15, but you can only compete in the Challenger Series or senior international competitions that are not ISU run, or you can compete at 16, but you cannot go to Worlds, or you can only go to Europeans or four continents and the Grand Prix. Maybe some system like that builds up. The older you get, the more opportunities you get. Or, something along those lines. I definitely see that with the Challenger Series, maybe because the Challenger Series always has a huge mix of skaters. I could definitely see, like, okay, you can compete on the Challenger Series if you're 16, but not anything else until you're 17. That could be something. I feel like that is not the worst. It could be somewhat reasonable. But again, 16 maybe does feel a little young to me. I'm not like too sure. Like, is 16 and a half kind of a reach? Is 16 and a fourth a reach? You're playing with numbers here. You're playing with months, not whole years. Maybe you're playing more with months. Is 16 and a half really that much different than 17, or is it really that much different than 16? What I also think about is that figure skating, the ISU should be setting up athletes for success after their skating careers. They should not be, retired and they're left in the dust. The ISU can't do anything. I hope the ISU provides opportunities for them to become alumni and maybe, hey, here's a scholarship to go to college, or they should definitely have something in place to help skaters transition to a normal-ish life, I guess. That's definitely in air quotes for me. But, I hope skaters do not feel pressure to give up their education because they need to skate. A lot of skaters have done, both education and skating at the same time, or taking a rest from education to do skating, or the other way around. But, I really do hope that that's something to consider, that, okay, maybe if you're 16, you're in high school, or maybe in Europe, you're maybe done with your high school, or, okay, do I want to keep on skating professionally? Do I want to go to college? Yeah. Is college in my future? Is there a job that I want to do? Things like that, I feel like can really help people consider their future. Especially when maybe it is, not in their heart and their passion to do skating full time professionally for another 10 years. I think that could definitely happen as well. Okay. But like I said, it definitely could change in the future, the age minimum, the what age you have to be. But I don't think not now after so recently. They did, again, like I said, they only did change it back in 2022, and now it's only 2025, which in figure skating terms is really not that long. So I definitely do think they could change it in the future. Maybe we'll see another ISU Congress after like the 2030 Olympics, maybe. I don't maybe think we're gonna see a huge age change at this 2026 edition, but maybe in 2030 or something, and 2034, then maybe they'll make it a little younger, and maybe they'll make it a little older. I really do think only time will tell. We'll definitely go to see the effects of all this happening. Only now are we going to see the effects of it. It's, the intended effects are to preserve physical and mental health. The intended effects are to increase longevity. That's what's intended. Is that really what's going to happen? Or maybe the people who say, that it's stifling the advertisement ability of the sport, or they should be focusing more on protecting environments and not so much on age limits. That's something I agree with too. We should be protecting skaters more from environments and coaching. Again, like I said, lots of things to consider for the ISU. Maybe sometimes we're a little too hard on ISU, even though ISU needs reform or whatever. I don't know, but definitely a lot of things to consider, lots of things to look at from a biological perspective, from a legal perspective, from a sport management perspective. Lots of things that could change in the future, but I don't think we're going to see the change right now. We're still seeing the effects of it occurring these next few seasons, these next few years, as more people come up. But I think the future of age and minimums in figure skating is kind of set for now, but in the future, I think it could very much definitely change. Anyway, that was all for this episode number 76 of a Teen Talk Skating podcast. My name is Ango. I hope you enjoy me ranting about the age mode and skating. Next week, I'm thinking about doing kind of a skater analysis or skaters about a skater's entire careers or, hint, about that, I guess. It's very big. But I hope you guys all have a great week, and I will see you next week for another cool episode. Bye bye.